Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, will the gambling man get back to gambling with a new offensive coordinator? Joey McGuire on fourth down in year 4. And also, did a portal party turn to a position group concern? We investigate next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's episode, we're actually going to dive into a question from a Matador mobster that relates to yesterday's conversation regarding the offensive line. He's feeling like he's almost hearing something that sounds like a concern rolling into 2025. But how could that be when that was the impetus of the I will movement? So fact or fiction, we'll get to a little of that on that front there. And we'll also consider, because I know it'll be a part of that offensive line conversation again, an opportunity for some young guys, whether underclassmen or otherwise, a youth impact. Could it be felt here or there? We'll talk about some position groups on either side of the ball where maybe that could be most likely to see some of those break through. But want to kick off our conversation today going back to Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, and now entering another season, which is of note because not every season has been the same for him as far as tendencies. So that's notable in and of itself as far as what to expect. But he's obviously got a pair of brand new coordinators in this instance. Maybe an offensive coordinator weighs a little more heavily into a conversation about aggression or fourth down or what you're doing in some of these tight situations. But I'm sure Shiel Wood's thoughts are considered as well, because then he's the guy that's maybe saddled with the situation on the other side of some aggression. So considering what that could look like this time around is what I want to kick off our convo with today, Chris. And let's start with thoughts on that from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire.
You know, I think we're going to be have a chance to be more aggressive, but I think we'll still be closer to last year from the standpoint of field position and putting ourselves like, you know, kind of more of, hey, when you get to that minus 45, 50 plus 45, you know, hey, this is where you need to be. But right now, like in the two scrimmages, we're being really aggressive on fourth down just so we don't have any hesitation, you know. I mean, it's all going to come down. We were talking yesterday as a team of like one-score games, being experts in the situations, one-score games, great communication by the coaches. And since we've never been in those situations in live games, we got to do as much as possible in these scrimmages.
Fourth down and or other situational aggression, Chris, has been a storyline at times and then maybe kind of more recently dialed back. What do you make of it as we head into a new era, coordinator-wise, and another year with Coach McGuire?
We got into these conversations at some this summer, like because in his tenure here, it's been kind of, I don't want to say all over the map, but it's been very different at times, and it's all based on what you've got planned for you on that particular Saturday, and what kind of game you're in, the environment, and a lot of factors that are going into it. And you know, we had kind of argued and countered our own arguments, and like, okay, well, I could see where you could be more aggressive with your kind of defense now, or you could also argue that you won't be as you know. And I would say that I think that everybody is aware of the data and the numbers and the book. And I don't think that – I think I want to say like in the 90% range went by that book in that first year when they beat Texas and Oklahoma, and they were just – we kind of knew what was coming. Like, okay, they're down 2 scores here in the third quarter. It's 4th and 5 on their own 40. They're going. You know, I mean, we kind of knew – you kind of learned – you started to learn some of the tendencies and like the dynamics. And then – I think some of that has since changed because of your team or the situation that you're in, file this away because it's hard to know what you've got at your disposal on various Saturdays, right? Player wise, weather wise, and all that stuff. But I think he's looking for reasons in some ways to be, I hate to say it like this, less aggressive. Just because I don't know if you feel the need to. This is like this was the chances you knew you had to take to minimize the talent gap against some teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you have that. You don't have that talent gap anymore. I mean, now you're the one that. Not that you're rolling the conservative dice out there and playing it that way. I'm not suggesting that, but I think if anything, you're like, I don't know if we need to take this chance. Before you felt like you had to. It was your only path to victory. And I don't know if you're wanting to do that now. But I just go back to, if we're just talking fourth downs, I just don't know if you're built to be able to operate that way this year like you were last. I don't know if I see it.
Because you're envisioning a lot of short yardage situations, I guess, right? Is that
well, or in those that present themselves? I just don't know if you have the same group of personnel,
yeah,
that is best suited for that, like hand in the ground, big tight ends, bigger experienced running backs, a QB that, I mean, so it's just it's an in total. And so that may be what I come at you with on saying maybe they don't feel like they need to like go that route on, not that, but hey man, punt it to and let Skylar Gill Howard run out there some more. I trust that more than I do. I don't know.
Well, I mean, those are the components that are sort of self-contained for Tech, regardless of what else was happening this offseason, the Joey and or roster component. Where's Mac Leftwich in all this? You think? As far as the leverage in OC is sort of, I guess, lended. I gave up lended for lent. In those situations, I'm not quite sure. It was probably different depending upon the relationship, but I'm curious maybe what a new OC, what type of impact he could have on this part of the conversation.
Well, he would, as they go throughout each week, he's able to present, here's what we like in this, and this is why. And all those things. And then when it comes down to it, you may not circle back to that Tuesday morning in the boardroom conversation until Saturday afternoon at 4:18, and it's 4 minutes left to go in the fourth or whatever. And it's like, okay, you still like that? What do you think? But do you have all the people available at that point in the game to be able to run it? What's the situation? All that stuff. I will say that Mac is very familiar with this, the way Joey thinks with the analytics. They use the same company at Texas State. So he's familiar with a lot of the same data, the same points. He's not going to throw up the King's X and say, I'm just not doing this. Or, dude, coach, what are we doing? Why are we not playing it by the book? That's where Joey has the ultimate say. Like a collaborative effort, yes, but that's where, hey, man, you got two plays here. Or it's not worth it here. We're not doing it. So this will be, I'm just going to guess, this will be a bit more of a grab bag on a Saturday to Saturday scenario.
Which is really, I think, just from a preference standpoint, what it should be. I mean, it's kind of what the game is calling for, I guess, in some of those situations where you make that call. And I never really liked the one that's, the coach or the team that's just, hey, we're the most aggressive team in the country. That's a great tagline, but I mean, really, sometimes you may be walking the plank because you were so aggressive. So case by case, what the game calls for is what I like to see. And I think we've sort of seen maybe some evolution more, at least the way I perceive it, more toward that from Coach McGuire as opposed to, say, just out of the gate year one. I remember the book. I mean, it seems like a lifetime ago now, Chris, but the book was a thing. Book. I mean, every week it seemed like we were talking about the book, and it's evolved just like we all do, I guess, but evolved over time. I do think to maybe be a little more situationally as opposed to just some kind of consistent part of the identity. But this is a new season, and God only knows what it's going to bring. But I am interested to kind of see what the spin is from Mac Leftwich in some of these situations. And I think you already touched on maybe the most important aspect of this all. It's the personnel. I mean, whether it's between the years or we are talking about hand in the ground type stuff, are you capable in these moments of, taking those kind of risks and trusting those guys? That's no small thing, and probably something we kind of overlook outside the huddle.
Because the thing that coaches trust the most in short yardage is running it, especially with a mobile quarterback. They also trust, like in the red zone, if you watch play calling, the closer you get to the goal line and the field is squeezed. I mean, in college anyway, it may not be that way in the pros, but typically it's just like, okay, this is where the QB run game comes into play, or pound it, because it's least likely to be a turnover or least likely to get tipped up in the air. I mean, there's all the bad things seem to happen when you squeeze all the players together. And so the easiest, most, less risky of the moves is to hand it off and just try to, win the battle of the trenches. But I hope you can do that this year. I just don't know. The tight end aspect is just such a massive difference between last year.
Yeah.
I think you're Miller and Carter, they're very good at different things. Probably underrated blockers, but it's a lot. Can you be Mason Tharp? Can you be Jalen Conyers? And then, oh, by the way, you had a 235-pound battering ram, back there that just was going to get his.
That was handy.
Yes. So I just So that may come into it too, because what's your bread and butter on short yardage this year on offense? If you want to go for it, like, coach, you 4th and 2, you got something you like? What is that exactly? I mean, I'm assuming it's a handoff to whom? To maybe the left side, or maybe you get a bit creative. Maybe there's some more wildcat. You
brought that up earlier in the offseason. I thought more so in a joking kind of way, but it may get more and more real by the day. I don't know. Again, who knows what this season will bring? It'll be a totally clean slate. Chris, let's stick with some of those big guys up front, because I wanted to get to this text from one of our Matador mobsters. This was from Mark, who said following the show yesterday. First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. And whether you got your eyes on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. It's simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. You'll love how easy and simple it is to use. And of course, PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure every time. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. With PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode brought to you by DripDrop. And if you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus or on the job, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, meetings, or more, hydration is where it all starts. And that's where DripDrop comes in. DripDrop is doctor developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration, uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My family's been going hard on the berry flavor, a game changer on those extra busy days. I've tried electrolyte powders before, but nothing tastes as good or works as fast as DripDrop. And right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. So just head to DripDrop.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. And stock up now and be ready when the heat hits hard with DripDrop. One of our Matador mobsters. This was from Mark, who said following the show yesterday, guys, great conversation about the offensive line. Enjoyed it, but at the end, I was left thinking, that sounds like they're talking about a concern. Is that the way I should think about it? How could it get here when this is what started the portal party? We did begin with an I will about the offensive line, Chris. Are we just thinking I hope at this point in time, or would you call it a concerning category? Are we there yet?
No, I don't want to. And it's all about context. I mean, I think you are in a much better situation than you were. Okay. However,
I'm glad you started there, by the way. Concerning compared to what is the first thing that kind of came to my mind?
Yeah, that's right.
Recent seasons.
Yeah, because like left tackle alone, if you'd have just made that change alone to last year, there's no telling how much different it all is. But Howard Sampson just got here; he wasn't here last year. So yeah, I'm not like ringing the alarm bell. However, if you're coming up with concerns, or as August is played out, I think you'd be very naive to go, it's all on lockdown, man. We're good to go. That's not the case. It's just not. There's too many pieces that haven't practiced yet or are working their way back. And, that's where my concern comes in. So this is you would love to have everything all nice and tidy and put a bow on it and be like, we're good. But that's not what you have here. And is that a major concern, a minor one? Is it number 7 on the list of concerns, or number 1? I don't really know. That's for I probably have it higher than number 7 if I was tossing stuff out there to you. But that's really the where I'm coming at it from. I'm not trying to like freak anybody out, but you've got a variety of people that just really haven't practiced much, that you were kind of counting on to either start or depth or whatever. And so,
and one, Chris, following a year-long absence, right? Is that
well, I mean, technically, Cowan, 2 of them. If you really want to get technical, I mean, Scurry played all of a game and a half last year.
Yeah.
And now Zambrano, and these are 2 guys that I would think would be in your top 6 or 7 if all were healthy and all things being equal.
Yep.
I think that the positives are Ponton, Daniel Sill. They've been regular. Holton Hendricks. So there's been some positives here, but I just, because this group it's about chemistry and continuity as much as any position on the field. They've got to work in unison and do different things, and there's a lot of communication and chemistry, and you're passing off blocks, you're calling the front, and like when you don't have a lot of the same that's used to playing next to each other, it's a bit tricky when people start showing you different blitzes or different looks or running stunts on you, and you're like, well, I thought you had. Well, no, I thought that's what. So that's why I'm coming at it from. But not having all your guys, and then not having the ability to have all your guys practicing and kind of knocking some of that stuff out, it's a concern for me. I don't mind saying that. I don't think that anybody should be freaking out or anything like that. I think you're going to put a very quality offensive line out there, but I don't know what your ultimate goal here is, in that I don't know if they could tell you, ideally, if all were healthy, this is our best 5. I don't know if they have had the ability to really see that yet. That also is, I guess, frustrating to me, and maybe frustrating but man, poor Clay McGuire. I mean, it's just kind of what the position's been for the last decade, I feel like. But you're in a much better spot now. Howard Sampson alone. Sheridan Wilson's been on lockdown. I think Will Jados has been a very positive addition on at left guard, and so it's just some depth. It's right tackle. It's just some of these other things here that I think you're still trying to sort through.
Yeah, first concerning compared to what? Because we have come from the dark ages as far as the last decade plus of offensive line play. I've said it many times. You've had some really nice pieces, and a lot of those guys have collected NFL checks for periods of time. But just putting those groups together to be really special, like you saw, say going back to the Leach era, it's been few and far between, or just hadn't been there at all. So number 1, compared to what, as far as my panic meter, so that's going to keep it fairly low because of one of these singular best additions you made to your roster being at the left tackle spot, like you talked about, Chris. Just because of that, I feel like you're already living a different life than you were previously. But I do get some of the, I guess, anxiousness when it comes to the other side of that offensive line. And that's no disrespect to Ponton, but obviously being a young guy and also being there with a guy that you brought in to man a spot, that position or otherwise, who hadn't been on the field until, I guess, last week. Coach McGuire talking about his participation last week and into a scrimmage. So we've got time still ahead of the regular season. So even if it is Zambrano based or whatever it might be, my concern meter is still very low. But the thing that you really touched on, we can't get around, Chris, is that all the stuff you're talking about building, which is chemistry and synergy and all that, really only happens with time together, and time's a waste. And so you can't really replace that just in a film room or something like that. You got to be out there doing it. And we're just now kind of getting to that point. But I guess prior to, say, at least Arkansas Pine Bluff, maybe you've had 2 weeks or 3 weeks of something sort of consistent. I don't know. We'll have to check back in, I guess, with Coach McGuire when we have the opportunity and see what it's been looking like. But I get the reason for the question, and it is kind of a strange experience because it is where the party kicked off.
Yep.
We're going to buy an offensive line, and you had a huge splash with Howard Sampson. But I don't know. Here we go. Before we get out of here, can I kind of swing it back to Ponton and some other guys? Because I want to talk about some of these young guy opportunities. He may be the lead dog on that list. I don't know, but offensive line might be a good choice for one of the spots where some young guys could break through. But I'm curious about a position group, Chris, that comes to mind when you think about maybe being prone to see some young guys make an impact. First, today's episode brought to you by OpenPhone. And if you're running a business, you already know every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? If you're like me, probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. If juggling 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate is a part of your daily routine, OpenPhone can solve that instantly. And their custom AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners right now 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's OpenPhone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free with OpenPhone. No missed calls and no missed customers. I'm curious about a position group, Chris, that comes to mind when you think about maybe being prone to see some young guys make an impact. Could we talk secondary, go back to the offensive line? What stands out to you?
Yeah, wrapping up the other one, I sure would love to have, like, on this particular team, if you had Taj back and like Caleb Rogers back, you'd feel all warm and fuzzy. It's like, damn, we've got it all, man. Right? Like the college equivalent. I mean, those are two draft picks, obviously from last year, but yeah, it's really that right tackle spot. And I do think when your O-line party started or the portal party started, I'm like, you thought you were going to still have Nick Fattig. There was some of that departed. True. That you could have continue to throw more dollars into the pool and have gotten more guys. But as far as young guys, I mean, Ponton he could absolutely be your starter at right tackle. Heck, to start the season and all year. Well, I don't know. I think you want Zambrano back quickly, and I think he is back now. How quickly does it take him to acclimate? What rust is there? That's why with this particular group and the youth that potentially could get involved, it's like this group could look vastly different in mid-October compared to mid-August. And it could look, let's hope it looks for the better, very different in mid-December than it does in mid-October even. But all of these pieces you're going to need at some form or fashion. Even if at the minimum they're there to push everybody in practices to make sure that if you've earned a spot, you're gonna work your tail off to keep it, because I'm right here. I'm waiting for something to happen. Like who knows what those pieces are. As far as youth, I would say safety in particular. I think Oliver Miles got a big shout out from Coach McGuire the other day after playing the red zone. I think Peyton Morgan, Malika Scarra, those guys are sitting right there behind Wisniewski and Brendan Jordan. That I think, and that's not to rule out that you couldn't move McCarty over there in a pinch or whatever. But I think there's some retro, because again, this is why I mentioned this position as would you add somebody late in the spring? Because normally who we'd be talking about here is Chapman Lewis. So, but he's minus Chapman, it just goes from like legit starters to redshirt freshmen. That's just, there's really nothing in between that unless you were to move somebody around a little bit. I think receiver is
Yeah, I was
also.
gonna bring that up.
Yep, you're starting to hear Leighton Stone's name a lot. You're starting, Kelby Valson got a shout out the other day. I think TJ West. I think you're starting to see a lot of these younger receivers. And we'll see when push comes to shove. But there's like safety. There's a lot of seniors at receiver, and then it's not. You don't have a lot of like junior types. They're all like either true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, kind of like the sophomore. So it kind of there's just not a ton of upperclassmen in general, unless they're these seniors, Reggie Virgil and Roy Alexander and guys like that, John Carlos Miller and all that stuff. So I think those would be two positions that I would certainly highlight as far as youth goes for sure.
I guess that what you're describing there is sort of why I've had the feel this offseason that you brought on a lot of great experience, and I've even thought at times it felt like your team got older, but then at the same time, I didn't feel like you were an old team, and you're pointing there to several spots across the board where there's that gap where you could get young really quick. Maybe you've got a top layer or a frontline guy who's got a lot of seasoning, but behind that, you get to some of that inexperience, which can bring some growing pains, but you also hope will pay off for the future.
You've recruited really well here. And some of those guys are going to continue to push through, and you're going to need some of these players because a lot of this very talented. Because you're sitting on a load of very talented defensive linemen, a load of them. Your interior, your edge.
One more time.
Yeah, your hybrid. Yeah. And some of those folks could spill over into special teams and your receivers and DBs and all those things. So that's where your football team should be really see some benefit here in general. But yeah, I mean John Curry's still a young player. He's going to play. Like Brock Galwas is another young linebacker that I think has got a chance to be your two running backs are true sophomores. And then behind them is, Quentin Joyner is obviously a sophomore, maybe junior, but then you've got like Adam Hill as a redshirt freshman. So that position group is very young. So anyway, but yeah, you could see because people forget about like Jacoby and Cam Dickey and acting like, well, yeah, they're old guys just because they played a little bit last year. But no, those are true sophomores.
Yeah, so I think you might kind of gloss over where some of the youth could show up if you're just thinking about maybe more of the portal additions or somebody like Baron Morton, Caleb Douglas, Jacob Rodriguez, some of the more familiar names. And you think, yeah, we got some gray hairs out there. That's good, long in the tooth and whatnot. But then there's this whole other group that's nowhere near that kind of seasoning. So it'll be interesting to see how they all kind of come together.
I'll tell you another name that probably hasn't been mentioned hardly at all, and people may not even really know who he is. He's got a kind of a generic name, but he's probably I don't know if he's third situationally, but Trey Jackson. He is the next tight end here. He's South Oak Cliff kid. I saw him play in high school. He came here as this kind of player that needed to put on a bunch of weight, which he started to do. He missed most of last year, and you didn't need him last year, but there was an injury last year. But he's somebody that Jason Llewellyn is probably your third tight end, or he's more of the hand in the ground. He's a deep snapper. He's some situational stuff. But like in a true backup for like what Terrence Carter and John Carlos Miller are doing, that's Trey Jackson. And people will probably like, who's this guy? Yeah. So he's somebody that could, because if one of those guys can't play in a game, Trey Jackson's going to be the one that plays in a lot of those packages where you're using two tight ends or you're flexing them out and all that kind of stuff.
All right, Chris. Well, that's good to know and names to keep an eye on, certainly. So keep them handy as we get closer to the season. Mock game week is upon us. Are you loosening up those game week muscles yourself? I'm trying to get into a little mock game week mode, so I'm thinking Tuesday night, maybe I'm going to dial up Central Michigan, Toledo, watch them do something stupid till about midnight. I have to go to YouTube probably for that, but
you're getting close to where we're going to be enjoying football on every night of the week.
Maction will be back, baby, soon enough.
That's right. Toledo will be throwing it up to Marshall, and we'll be like sitting there like a couple of degenerates on a Tuesday night at 7:30 going,
damn right.
What is going on? Yeah, that's right. So,
yeah, later in the week, I mean, we'll get to talking real football because we actually have some Big 12 race interest already on the line, right?
Yeah, 3 teams in action, and one of those, that's just a monster game, because I want to get into that as we get toward the end of the week. Of
course, all as it relates to our Texas Tech interests, we don't care about the rest of your interests. We'll tie it back to what we want for ourselves here in the 806.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you got it.
All right, man. Appreciate your time as always. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, keep hope alive, people.
And get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the Everydayers for always being out there, and appreciate the Matador Mob and our guy Mark for spurring on part of the conversation today. Of course, you can always get to us. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. Just hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining that crew. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.